What's the most influential thing that you've learned from the martial arts?
One time when I was young, I was 14, 15. I had already gotten my black belt in Tae Kwon Do because I had been training in it since I was 6. And
at that point, had you been kickboxing?
Yeah, I had been kickboxing a little bit.
And tournaments?
And yeah, I fought tournaments. I was ranked #1 in the state of Texas.
So Texas state champion?
Yeah.
At that point? Okay.
I fought a couple of amateur kickboxing fights and was doing pretty good at those. So naturally, being that young and experienced, I thought I was pretty hot stuff. And
I could see that though. I mean, you're a teenager and like you've won a bunch of stuff. I mean,
and man, I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof, or at least I thought it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, we would get together outside of school and all that kind of stuff, of course, and we would all get together and we would fight each other, just me and a bunch of group of guys and all that kind of stuff. And that was kind of our way of having fun. And there was this guy who had never had any formal training whatsoever. He wasn't a kickboxer, didn't do Tae Kwon Do, didn't do any kind of martial arts whatsoever. And I ended up matching up with this guy. And
at one of these fights that you guys put on?
Yeah.
So was this like somebody's backyard?
It was more like a field. Wasn't necessarily a backyard.
So a field party, but with fighting.
Yes.
Okay. And I think I remember some story about you guys used T-post.
Yeah, at one
for
point
the ring corners.
Yeah, T-post and rope. It was definitely OSHA regulated. It's probably a little bit more dangerous. We probably got more lucky than what we realized. But anyway.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Anyway, I got matched up with this guy, and of course everybody thought it was going to be a good fight and all this kind of stuff. And we get in there, and this guy proceeds to beat the ever-loving crap out of me. Like, there was not a single shot that I could land on him that made any difference. He beat me down to the ground, and I tried to get back up, and he beat me down to the ground again, and I got back up, and he beat me down, and it just kept going and going and going like that.
So like some cool hand Luke?
Man, I'll tell you what I lacked in fighting skill that day, I made up for in resilience, because I just kept going after it. Anyway, and it wasn't one of those where like he was going to kill me or anything like that. We were just doing it for fun. But
yeah,
there wasn't a shot that I could land on him that could do anything to him, and he just proceeded to beat the crap out of me. And so
man, that had to be humbling.
It was very humbling because I figured out that no matter what it is that you think or that you train or whatever, there's always going to be somebody out there that's bigger, badder, probably a little bit better. And not only that, but just because, you're a state championship or a state champion in one level of competition, and, you fight amateur, you fight professional, whatever, there's always that chance that somebody's going to come along and just snatch that from you. And so how this influenced me going forward is it made me question everything that I was doing, but not in the way of like, oh, Tae Kwon Do sucks, I'm never going to do Tae Kwon Do again. But it's like, there's this guy who's had no formal training whatsoever, matched up against somebody who that's all he does.
Yeah. And,
he was able to, for lack of better, mop the floor with me.
Yeah.
And so it made me think that, there's this whole wide world of different things that you can train, different things that you can specialize in. And so it drove me to get out and try to train everything I could from anybody that I could. And another cool thing about that is at that age, at that time, this was before MMA was like super popular and everything like that. There wasn't a whole lot of Muay Thai gyms. There wasn't a whole lot of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu gyms. There was a lot of traditional martial arts, but it really it made me think about, why should I stick to just this one system? Why should I stick to just kickboxing or just Tae Kwon Do or whatever? Why not go out there and learn from a Kung Fu guy, or learn from a boxer, or learn from a kickboxer? And that's one of the things that really stuck with me through the rest of my martial arts career up to the present day, is because I've always had this philosophy of like, I want to learn everything I can from anybody I can, because I don't know it all. I know a lot of stuff because I've trained a lot of stuff, but I don't know everything. And
Well, I remember even when we met, so this would have been, what, 15 years later?
yeah.
And I remember I had never heard the word cross-training so much before. Like,
Yeah, well, when
because you
you
were always talking about training different things. And like, I had only trained Krav, right? And
yeah, so when you and I started talking to each other, it was at a Krav gym that I taught at, and I had taught at for a little while. And simultaneously, I was also training Filipino martial arts. I was training Jiu Jitsu, you know, and a number of different things. And you know, a lot of people at that gym had come in just for Krav, and that's all they were training was just Krav and stuff like that. And, you know, it's always been my philosophy that, you know, there is no one perfect system out there. There are systems that specialize in things. Krav Maga specializes in self-defense in a short amount of time. You know, Filipino martial arts specializes in weapons training, you know, and so on and so forth. Everybody has their specialty. You know, and if you could take all of these different specialties and make it into yourself and make it work for yourself, you know, in my opinion, that makes you a much better martial artist.
well, yeah, I would think like you can't have too many different tools.
No, not at all. And another part of it is experience, right? The reason why that guy beat the dog crap out of me is not because he was necessarily the better fighter, but the way that we were fighting, he had a lot more experience than I did. Up until that point, I was kickboxing and I was training Tae Kwon Do. And so I was really good at fighting other Tae Kwon Do guys. I was really good at fighting in the realm of kickboxing. You know, I hadn't done a whole lot of, you know, backyard brawl type fights or anything like that.
Yeah.
So essentially we were fighting a different fight because he was a lot more experienced in what it was that he was trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I was trying to match up in that world, and I didn't know what kind of fight I was fighting. And, you know, I think that experience kind of speaks to cross training a little bit, because the more you cross train, the more experience that you get, you know, you get to pull on different instructors and stuff like that. Yeah. And ultimately it just raises that fighter IQ to where, you know a lot of stuff and you can operate, you know, doing a lot of different things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's kind of funny too, because nowadays, whenever anybody calls me a Filipino martial arts guy or a defense lab guy or, you know, whatever, I kind of laugh on the inside, because since that experience, I never wanted to be a specific kind of guy. Like, I never wanted to be limited to just one single system. Yeah. Because I train everything and I want to learn everything that I can. And that doesn't make me a specific system kind of guy. It makes, you know, kind of like what Bruce Lee said, your own form of self-expression. And I think that's more important than anything else in martial arts. Yeah.
And just, I kind of want to say, for the people that don't know you and don't necessarily know how you train, like, you don't train everything every day.
No.
You go through phases where you train some things more than other. You do train a couple of different things at a time, kind of, but you really, you focus on different systems for a while, and then you move on to the next one. And so sometimes, like, I think it confuses people, but it's just because they don't have the breadth of knowledge that you have as far as where you can change between them.
Well, a lot of that also has to do with inspiration. You know, I'm inspired by a lot of different systems, and I'm inspired by a lot of different ways of training. And, you know, some days I'll be inspired by Filipino martial arts, and that's what I'll be training that day and the day after and the day after and the day after. And then, you know, I'll want to switch to something else and kind of work on those skills a little bit. But it's all about consistent training, but it's also about, you know, making your training fun. You know, if I stick to one thing for X amount of time, eventually I'm going to get to the point where it's like, oh, okay, now I need to change, you know, because that's just the type of person that I am. Yeah. But if I'm able to kind of switch gears a little bit and still working on building that skill set, but not being stuck, it keeps me going and keeps me training, and it makes it fun for me, which, you know, as most people will tell you, they're a lot more likely to stick to something that they find is fun rather than something that's just a chore, and eventually they're going to stop because it's not fun anymore.